children, yes, they are working, begging, they are working. So there is a boss who sits behind and watches as they beg.
Sometimes you can see they're hungry.
Yes, so
they
are
can't
working.
Even take a bottle of water.
Yes.
But every money they give somewhere else.
Yes, they are begging is a job. So there are people who ferry those children to come to Kampala, to stand on the streets, and then beg the money, and they take it to the bosses. So that's child trafficking, which is quite difficult to manage. In fact, there is a market. When you go in Karamoji again, there was a market where children are put, like you found.
Paraded.
Yeah, they are paraded. Yeah,
like,
they are paraded.
Like the times of slavery.
Yeah, they are paraded, and you go and actually sell this one and that one and that one. They sell them. Yeah.
At that, I want to go to Julian. We can see that trafficking can happen anywhere.
Yes.
And now we are focusing on the child. We've seen that even amongst us, actually, you missed the conversation on the day of the African child. On the day of the African child, we kind of touched sometimes child labor is done by we ourselves in your home. So it looks like you're also connecting this, that sometimes we are also traffickers. We are also traffickers. Now, I want to ask Julian a question. How, and I think this I had not planned to ask, but from her composition, how do I identify? What are the indicators that something is fishy? I am promised green pastures. My child is promised green pastures. How do I know that now there's something fishy?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. I think as key stakeholders, especially when it comes to taking care of children, we have had a challenge of being able to identify. Maybe we need to know just a little bit of facts. One fact is child trafficking is real. When we talk of human trafficking, the first thing we think of is for those that cross borders. But as a matter of fact, there is more of internal trafficking than external or transnational. You know, so one fact is, and those who are victims of internal trafficking, most of them are children. The other fact is, like I said, the perpetrators are in that home. They are well known by the victim. In most cases, it is the parents, or it is those that are known by them, maybe a neighbor, maybe an auntie, you know, and so many others. So we are saying, how are we able to identify? And now that is where the challenge comes in. I keep asking myself a question, that we are not there in terms of awareness creation, but there has been a level of awareness and education that is happening right now. But then you wonder, the more we create awareness, the more the animal increases.
Yes.
You get it? But I believe it is because traffickers are very fast at acting, whereas response is slow. Response in what way? One, maybe even the victims are not aware. They are not aware that they are being groomed to be trafficked. They, like she said, the ultimate aim is to go and look for greener pastures, to go and get better economic opportunities. But when they get there, the story changes. So we get really quite challenged when it comes to, first of all, identifying the victim. But there are so many indicators that can point you, just pointers that can tell you, I think this child is not okay. We see levels of isolation, you know. Maybe a child is trying to hide some kind of information. We have seen, for example, now we have been able to partner with schools, and some of the stories that we are getting from the schools are the child decides to isolate themselves, and before you know it, 2-3 days later, they are gone, and you wonder. So there are very many chances, and also, of course, there are things that happen at their home: violence, physical abuse, all that. So that child is highly vulnerable to trafficking, if you get to know.
Actually, we are going to get to there.
Yes.
What causes, what makes us more vulnerable. But from what I get, is that one, when you are promised a job that you don't qualify for, it's an indicator from
Sure.
both your conversation.
Sure.
Because you're told you're going to be a nurse, but you know you don't qualify to be a nurse. But even when you're a nurse here, you know that your certificate internationally doesn't work. Two, that when they start telling you to change identity and details, because you've said there are things, there are information you hide.
Yes.
Like they tell you, don't say you are Emmanuel, say you
Something else.
something like that.
What a name.
You don't say you're in Nyarwanda, say you're in Joli. You don't say you are from Kampala, say you're from somewhere.
Yes.
And three, that when you start hearing that people are being strict, they're telling you, don't tell this one, don't do this, like everything is done underground. And I think the last one and most important for today, every child under the age of 18, the moment you allow them to go and seek employment, they're child laborers. And at that point, it's one of the biggest indicators that you've gone into child trafficking. Now, that is a problem. But who is responsible, doctor? Who should help?
Yeah, I think responsibility is a huge one here in child trafficking.
And why I'm saying that, Salvation Army has a project, but who else?
So we can call them the different stakeholders.
Yes.
When we look, because when we explain, just from the show here, is that we have seen child trafficking happening at different levels, you know, right from the home, from the community, from those who are selling, from those who are receiving, from the paperwork. You remember I said, get papers, you know, get identification. So you see that everyone is involved, including offices that are involved. So when we want to map out the stakeholders involved, then you map out the different processes that happen along the way, starting from the family. The family is a key stakeholder in the child trafficking agenda of stopping child trafficking, because whoever is, but like I said, they are not stolen, they are not kidnapped. That is what we need to know. It is a human trade, meaning there is a seller and a buyer. So we must identify the stakeholders involved in the selling, and then stakeholders involved in buying, you know. So once we identify those, so when we are dealing with the selling part of it first, we get to know that if it's a child, since we are talking about child trafficking, there is a parent or guardian. You see, that is a key stakeholder. And when we are coming up with activities to stop or to solve or minimize this problem, we must come up with programs targeting the parents and guardians to help them understand that any child below 18, just like you said, even if you're needy help, even if they are needy help, getting involved in work is going to expose them to a series of risks, including sexual abuse, including actually physical abuse. We have seen many of them are brought back from wherever they are, even within the country, when they have been abused physically, sexually, mentally, everything. So when the parent and or a guardian appreciates that, then we get to understand that that is a key stakeholder. Because if we block off that chain, if it's broken from the selling point, you will not sell, you know. So the big portion of the key stakeholder is the parents or the guardians, and then it goes to the community. We have the key stakeholders at community level, because these children actually get letters of introduction from the LC1 chairman. Yes, so the LC1 chairman should ask, what am I writing this letter for? Because the chairman writes properly, this is to confirm so and so aged 15 years. Is a
Sometimes they even add years. They say aged 19 years.
Yes. So they even help to camouflage the information and say no, he's age 20 when you know he's 15. So that becomes a key stakeholder, because this child will not even get a passport or visa without that letter. You get? So it makes that LC1 chairman, a key stakeholder, to block it off immediately. In fact, I'd go and report, you know, that I'm seeing a child who is actually being taken for work or somewhere.
I am going to put just a stick. I'm going to just put a comma here, and we are going to go for a short break, but when we return, we are going to know how come the LC1s are ready to conspire. How come the parent is willing to give out a child? But how come the child in Uganda is excited to go somewhere else? We are also going to look at me as a person. What can I do? What specific things can we do? And where can we report? Please keep tuned in as we return. I hope you enjoy the conversation. See you soon.
Human trafficking is a crime which impacts people all over the world. Traffickers often target those who are already vulnerable, socially isolated, or simply in need of work. And it's most often or the chance to earn money which lures people away from the safety of the places they know and the people they love. In the towns and villages in eastern Uganda, it can be hard to earn enough to make ends meet. The border with Kenya is not far from here. It stretches for 500 miles and is easy to cross if you know where to go. Traffickers trick people with their lies and false promises. They exploit this porous border, and without the proper documents, the people who travel with them become powerless. On foreign soil, they are ever more dependent on their traffickers. The stories of survivors are harrowing.
Good morning to you. Yes, how are you?
Through prevention, protection, and partnership, the Salvation Army is working alongside communities to bring human trafficking to an end. Supporting survivors who've returned home, helping to strengthen resilience through income generation projects and savings and loan schemes, and mobilizing communities to protect themselves. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can stop human trafficking.
Yeah. What time is it now? So far gone.
Human trafficking is a crime which impacts people all over the world. Traffickers often target those who are already vulnerable, socially isolated, or simply in need of work. And it's most often the promise of a better life or the chance to earn money which lures people away from the safety of the places they know and the people they love. In the towns and villages in eastern Uganda, it can be hard to earn enough to make ends meet. The border with Kenya is not far from here. It stretches for 500 miles and is easy to cross if you know where to go. Traffickers trick people with their lies and false promises. They exploit this porous border, and without the proper documents, the people who travel with them become powerless. On foreign soil, they are ever more dependent on their traffickers. The stories of survivors are harrowing.
Yes, how are you?
Through prevention, protection, and partnership, the Salvation Army is working alongside communities to bring human.
Welcome back from the break, and we're still having a conversation about not leaving any child, leaving no child in the fight against human trafficking. Now, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes tells us in its report that 50% of children that are trafficked, there was a relative, a guardian, or a parent that participated, conspired, abetted, or aided that human trafficking to happen. So as we continue our conversation, and I'm going to Julia, we want to know, what do you think? And if you have any idea, please also comment. Tell us, what do you think makes parents willing to let go their children to be trafficked? What makes uncles, what makes the chairman LC5s, or sorry, LC1s, to be willing to write that letter and say this child is above age? What makes the child excited to leave Uganda? What are the causes, and what are the causes of the excitement? Julia.
Yes. So thank you very much. Thank you, viewers, for sticking to this talk show. One of the, what you asked, what makes it difficult to identify a child who is becoming a victim or is already a victim, you know, yeah, things like that. One of the challenges that we have had, especially with traffickers have approached this business in a clandestine manner. You know, they can use private homes, they can go to the home. This is a known, you know, person to the adult, and they'll give you a good story, and you end up handing in your child willingly, you get. So when this child goes, they go through, I'll call it grooming, where there's a mindset change that must happen. That's why before we went for a break, you said, this child will claim she's 18 or 19, and yet in actual sense, they're 15. There was a grooming that happened. And of course, that as time goes on, there is some kind of psychological trauma that happens. So at times,
some disorientation,
yes,
indoctrination,
yes,
something.
there is a lot of trauma that happens in there that it may make it difficult even to report, because they have been told, you report, you face the consequences. So it becomes so hard in terms of response that we are not able to get this person in time. So those are some of the challenges. And yes, and what are those, what are the causes? Like I said, I mean, people want to look for greener opportunities. We know that as a country, our economic status is not, you know, it is basically targeting the literate, you get. So you find that most of the youths who are victims of this crime, most of them are have inadequate skills, I would say, to be able to qualify for the jobs that would give them a standard of living that they would, you know, require. So we go with the excitement, and we genuinely know that everything will be well until things turn the other way around.
Thank you very much, Doctor. What are they hoping for? What are they looking for? You know, Pierre Olmumba says that he wonders that when the African forefathers rise up, what will they see in Africa? That they will be confronted with an Africa where African young men and women are being seen drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, being enslaved. But this time round, they are not seen wailing and kicking as they fight against being enslaved, but they are being seen wailing and kicking as they fight to be enslaved. What are they hoping for? What are they running away from?
Yeah, one clear one is poverty. It's no question. In our community, sometimes we fail to agree with some statistics that are happening in the country, even when we are part of the country, part of the government, I must say. So sometimes you hear that there is improved economic status of this population. But when you practically go to the community and relate those statistics with the actual feeling of what you're seeing, it's typically different. So poverty has really been the major cause of this. These people are running away from poverty, clearly. And you can't survive in this day and night life of everywhere, not even just Uganda alone. When you're poor, so everyone struggles. You would rather hear, actually people tell you, let me go and try. Even if they are telling, because there are so many stories about, say, the world out there, how children are, mistreated, and they are being told the harassment they go through, but they will go and they will tell you, instead of suffering with poverty here, let me go and try it out there. Yeah. So poverty is one of the things that poverty makes you go and kill. They hire you, not too much, give you 100,000. You think people who kill are given how much? I'll give you $1 trillion and hit a person. So poverty clearly is one. Then we also, from the society we are coming from, culture. We have culture causing child trafficking particularly in different ways. I can quickly talk about two or one. One is many children are running away from the abusive culture. You heard of this circumcision of the girls, FGM, yes, FGM. Many of them actually ran away in hiding. When they are running away, someone is actually using that opportunity to tell them, run away and come here. You know? And as they are running away, they are taken to homes that actually sell them off, either through sexual whatever. And so many other things. Culturally, you also find that some cultures marry off children as early as 15, 12. So that is a cultural setting. And so many of those. But also you find that it's a survival now for the fittest. Go and struggle. You have to survive, like I said. So people find a way of survival, and even when they know that there is a threat. So like I said, purely no one is kidnapped to go into that whatever they are going to do. But it's the situations that are happening.
So before, Uganda used to have also, one of the causes would be insecurities and instabilities, especially in northern Uganda. But now that our wars have kind of subsidized, I think now that's one of the major reasons, actually the major reason, poverty and hope for greener pastures. Julian, do they actually find the greener pastures? I want the viewer to know, are there actually some, or do they actually find greener pastures that they seek for?
Okay, maybe to just add on something. Incidentally, we have refugees. So the political instability may not necessarily be within.
Yes.
But
and actually, as you bring up that, I also want Doctor to be thinking of what are the alternatives. If I want, because she talked about culture, if they are going to marry me as young, and I want to run away from home, but someone has given me the alternative of going abroad. What should I do for me to be safe? What are the alternatives? Where do we report? Where do we get refugee other than going for trafficking? Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So we have very many categories of vulnerable groups, and all those are caused by instability, both economic, political, and all that. And even if the country is not having the political instability, somehow the citizen is displaced, because remember, the refugees are coming. So now there is a fight for the limited opportunities there in terms of social services, also other employment opportunities, you get. So those are some of the factors that actually contribute towards this, where our young people are being trafficked.
That makes me think. That means a Salvation Army or any other stakeholder is involved. When we see natural disasters,
Yeah.
that is a den of, that's a target.
Very true.
So we should look out, go create awareness, help people. But
yes.
my question is, and you're still going to tell me, do they get
Yes.
do they get the greener pastures? But at the same time, I want you to answer, but also, why are you targeting specifically Eastern Uganda? What happens to us in Northern Uganda and Western Uganda? Yes.
That is a very simple answer. We have limited resources.
Okay.
Yes.
You have a
wish-
resource expert here, resource mobilization.
Well, I think we shall work together with her to see how we can make it a
We're going to
national
have a discussion
program.
on that.
Yes.
But for now, tell us, do they actually find
Yes.
the greener pastures they seek?
Like I said, from the very beginning,
Mm.
for this action to qualify to be a human trafficking case, it must fulfill those three elements. So we have migrants. Today, in one of our news bulletins, we are told we are all migrants. Migrants, everyone came out of their mother's womb. So you migrated from your mother's womb. Yes, you migrated from somewhere. And so the fact that I came from Bukedia to come to Kampala, I qualify to be a migrant. But now where it becomes a different story, it is now at the exploitation stage, where the trafficker or the agency or the company, say a recruitment company in this case, or my employer we agreed on the terms and conditions of that specific job, only to get there and the story becomes different. So you asked, do they get? No. And that is why we call them victims. Because you did not get what you bargained for, and that's where it all happens. So in most cases, what happens for you to go, there is the element of coercion, there is the element of abuse of power. Like I said, a parent will abuse her power or his power as a parent to intimidate this child to go. So I normally use this story, and it's a true life story. We have a partner organization that deals in taking care of street children. Children that are going from the street, they bring them to rehabilitate them. So one of the street child was giving her testimony. She was coming from, I think, Luwero, 12 years. She had been on the streets 2 years. So how did she leave Luwero? The mother told her, she was a single parent, told her, go to Kampala and make money. If you don't go, I'm going to kill myself, I'll kill your sibling, and before I kill myself, I'll kill your sibling and kill you. So all she gave her was transport to Kampala. So she found her way to Wandegea. So she was begging. And you know the vulnerabilities that come with children that are begging on the streets. Even worse things happen, including sex exploitation. You know. So this child was on the streets. She reached a point, and the mother bought her this cartouche. And she told her, you're going to use this phone. You will be sending me mobile money every day for 10,000. Now this child has come on the street. She must look for a place to sleep, but she also has to send on a daily 10,000 to the mother to take care of herself and her sibling. So she reached a point she could not, continue. So she calls the mother and tells her, I'm tired, please give me a chance to. And she said, if you dare come, before you even arrive, we shall all be dead. So she says, thankfully, this organization was able to pick her off the street. So there are elements of abuse of power, not just even at the home level, but even at the workplaces, where our employers abuse us. There are so many aspects. Recently, we had a story of the Myanmar young men who went. They were professionals. They were working online until when they told them, no, now it's time to come and we have physical work. You get?
Let me cut you short, because we are coming to that conversation, especially the online.
Yes.
Before we go to the online, I want to go to Doctor. Doctor, alternatives. I'm being threatened. Culture challenges. I'm being married off. What should I do? Meanwhile, the biggest victims are girls.
Yes.
Some of the girls that you see on the streets of Kampala, they are actually they are victims of human trafficking.
Sure.
They've been made to sell their bodies. And some of those girls are actually people below 18. Alternatives. What do I do?
So, as we address the issue of alternatives, here we again map out the causes.
Yes.
So, we are talking about two items here. Prevention. So, alternatives in line with preventing the risk of trafficking to happen. And then we must also talk about alternatives that come into mitigation. When people have already happened, how we integrate them back into communities, which programs can we give them, and so on. So let me talk about prevention first of all, because when we are dealing with child trafficking or any trafficking, the starting point is it should not happen. So it should not happen, meaning we are preventing it from happening. And so there are, we know why it happens is we said one is poverty. So when we are dealing with it, there has to be programs, and that's why you see the government brings up programs that are to transform what we call socio-economic transformative programs. People will not appreciate that actually the government is already addressing so many of these with one button of the bullet. So when you're improving the economic status of the family, and like programs like PDM are actually going direct to the vulnerable households that actually were more vulnerable, more susceptible to this trafficking, to any other challenges, because we have seen statistics show us that the trafficking is happening largely in poor households. HIV transmissions are happening largely in poor households. And many abuses, child labor and everything is happening in poor households. So the starting point is then we need to have a socio-economic transformation of that household. So preventing from the economic point of view is trying to understand these families at the community level. We should be seeing a large number of livelihood programs coming on. Then awareness. You see, it's very easy to convince a person who is struggling with life to give in her child. No mother, like even the mother you're talking about, no mother or parent would want to let go of their child. But the problem at hand is it's more heavier than the child letting go of the child, So how do you help this mother appreciate the fact that they can actually deal with it differently? So by studying what people are going through, and being able to come up with the projects that can help them, we address that problem. So economic empowerment or livelihood improvement is critical. When we come to causes related to culture, we have had so many programs that are trying to help people understand that there are some cultural activities that are beneficial to a community, but there are those that are detrimental. They cause more harm than the benefits that we hold. And that's why you see programs or cultures like FGM, where they made the community that we're celebrating it to understand the bigger picture of the negative implications. So they had to go into awareness programs. So awareness programs are critical when we are dealing with child trafficking. Let the community, the stakeholders, the parents, the community, the leaders at LC1 who actually help in helping this trafficking to happen, appreciate that these children can do something else than going to be a house girl. And so that's why you see programs like compulsory education, especially because at that time people would say, oh, education is very, it's expensive. But right now, there is free education. So whereas we talk of quality, at this time, we don't even assess the quality component when we are saying access to education. As far as we are concerned, such a community just needs access. We may not talk about the quality as yet. So having them access education is one way of helping them stay in school. Because you've had programs where they have said, we are trying to solve this problem by creating an environment where girls stay longer in the school. So you know that when a child stays longer in the school and finishes P7, S4, there is a chance that this child will not be moved away to trafficking and all that. So such programs help in addressing the problem as prevention. Now when we come to mitigation,
when we are still at preventative, redress, it has not yet happened. But I am a young girl of 17 who is watching now, or I know a young girl of 17 who is about to be victimized, or I know of someone who is trying to conspire for this to happen. Where do I get redress? Because one, I want to be, someone is going to marry a girl young. Now I know someone who's giving him the option of going to an Arabic country, and the child is tempted. If I'm going to talk to that child, where does she get redress? The other child that has been told, do this, is being forced, you must do this, and she doesn't, or he doesn't want to do it. Sorry, where does he get redress?
Okay. So you see there are a number of structures in place at a village, up to this district and even national level, both in non-government organizations and also government organizations. And clearly, I think Salvation Army, one of the things Salvation Army should do is creating that mapping of the available structures at the community so that we communicate to these children. Because, by the way, there are children who are empowered to say no. Because one of the is to create that empowerment in children when they are at school, especially. We empower and make them exciting, make school exciting. Because when you make school exciting and tell them that actually you're destined for better things, the children will be empowered and they'll be protecting themselves from anyone who is coming to tell them, no, get out of school and go to the other side. So when we map out the different stakeholders that these children can go, now we have the LC1 office, but they have to also first go through awareness. Because remember, we talked of a situation where they conspire. So first of all, we need to make them part of the game. Move them to this side of preventers, crime preventers or trafficking preventers. So once they are part of the system of prevention, so then children will be told that when you have any challenge, go to the LCR. Second, we have police. But remember, some of the abuses are condoned by that structure as well. So again, the starting point is to first pull them on our side, you the preventers, before you actually introduce the idea of report them to police. And already it's happened, because that's why we have protection units at the office, at the police, because that is what they are supposed to. That desk is to receive reports of potential abuses even before they are abused. Because the child can run there and tell them that, you know what, I have heard they are getting for me a man to marry, but I still want to be at school. So that means you have empowered that child already, and she's able to identify that this is not right. So she's able to say no. But for her to sustain her no, she needs someone to back her up. And so she has to run to the LC1, who is also already on your side of the preventers, and then run to the police, who is also the side on your preventers, and so many other structures. And also parents. Because you see, I remember when we were growing up, they would tell us to identify, when I was in primary, I don't know if it's still happening, but they would tell us to identify one of your best friends in the community, the elders. And I remember either it was just a school program, I don't see it so common, but they would tell us, identify one of your best friends, who is like your mother, but not your mother, the age of your mother in the community. And your best friend, you should be able to run to quickly and report, and they should be able to protect you. So, in the community, there are those people who actually provide information to these children, but also protect these children.
Thank you, Doctor. 1 minute, and then I come back to Doctor about stakeholder and resources. But 1 minute, is there an option of intercepting? Let's at the airport. I have known that the child is going, and that child who is going is 16, not 18.
Yes.
I have the information. Can I call Salvation Army? Is there any other offices in government in Uganda that I can call?
Yes. I was listening to one of the government officials saying that Entebbe is being declared a free zone for trafficking. So I'm yet to read that report. I think there's a report that has come out. But you see, like we said, we find it hard to identify because one thing I know that organizations, especially in this kind of space, have been able to train staff at the immigration or even at the airport to allow them to help them be able to see the red flags, while at their workplaces. We have been, as the organizations in this space, have also been able to train the judiciary on how to handle these cases, because you realize this case, this case has been hidden under particular laws. So there's an act specifically for it, so that when there's a trafficker, he is actually sentenced for the right. So this morning I was listening that there has been one trafficker who has been sentenced to life, his natural life in prison. So yeah, we see that if we can only train the stakeholders at the who are like responders at the end of the day, say at the immigration, at the airport, maybe even in the judiciary, in the event that cases are taken there, even at the police. We are glad that at the districts where we are, at the police, there is the AHT unit or a desk that specifically handles such cases. So it's more of encouraging awareness so that stakeholders are able to contribute towards the interception.
As I want to come to, as we're driving to the conclusion of this conversation, I want to come to the doctor to tell us, more or less we've handled different stakeholders, police, LC, immigration, judiciary, intelligence, and so on. How do the organizations that are creating preventative measures, because we're going to go to the mitigation as we end, and also mitigation, how do we get resources if government is limited by resources? If maybe even these NGOs are limited by resources, is there any tips on that?
On the resources?
On the resources, as and I'm going to come to you to summarize for us some atrocities that these people go through, or what happens, or what they are actually, the real intentions of trafficking them, other than giving them work, right? Yes.
Yeah. So resources, yeah, we are in a resource-constrained environment generally for everything. So we have identified child trafficking as one of the problems that this country is facing. And like I've told you, child trafficking, the way we approach it as government is we normally don't go direct to the mitigation per se. We invest largely in the preventive measures. So the child trafficking programming or preventing risks to child trafficking and is found in the Ministry of Gender. And so the budgets around empowering communities, around empowering communities and people affected, and even setting up structures, systems and structures at that level to handle any social risk factors like child trafficking are seated at the Ministry of Gender. And once a program sits at a ministry, then it is facilitated budget-wise, and in plans they are put there. So, but of course, like any other program, it's a program that is not fully funded, because all our, be it health, be it education, everywhere, we shall always get a deficit budget. But the starting point is clearly the government looks at it as one of the areas. But like I say, people might not appreciate the fact that actually there is investment in that area. But you see, like I said, the investment we put as government is not direct that this is child trafficking program or budget or what, but it will address some of the causal factors. How do I ensure that a child stays in school? So then you invest heavily in school-related programs.
And
how do you empower? How do you ensure that poverty does not drive a mother to sell off a child? So you go into PDMs and all that to ensure that women have access to programs like that. How do we empower the structures like police and all that to participate in this? We set desks at police, in schools, and so forth. So you see that there is a lot of work being done, but resources will always not be there, but at least there is effort. And resources, that's why you see we have non-governmental systems or organizations like Say Salvation, and when they come on board, they are complementing what government would have otherwise done. So of course we appreciate Salvation Army and the teams out there that their work they are doing is purely government work, and they are complementing, because we cannot do it all as government.
Thank you. Julian, from your experience, what are actually the real reasons or the purpose for which these people are trafficked?
Okay, thank you so much. I just had a report from the Ministry of Gender. They were reporting, they have a helpline for issues related to children. And they just reported that just this month, which is ending tomorrow, they have reported through their toll-free line called Sauti, 23 cases of children being trafficked just this month. So you are asking, what are those atrocities like? In other words, why do they traffic children? So most of them take them for labor. They are cheap. So it's cheaper for me to hire a child to take them to my farm.
So literally forced labor.
Yeah, it is forced labor. And also we have heard of child sacrifice.
Oh.
Because we know that the children are innocent. So when you're sacrificing, you get, so there's child sacrifice. There is also early child marriage, so, and also there is also sex exploitation, sex work. So ultimately, they are basically cheaper than the adults, and also they are innocent when it comes to those other exploitations that we don't want to talk about.
Thank you. As I'm coming to Doctor, I just want to remind everyone that body organ trade is also real. In addition to the reasons Julian has mentioned, body organ trade. People are taking children to take their hearts, to take their eyes, to take their livers. So please don't take your child there. But now, if the child has been taken, because I want to read you a quote from a lady called Victoria Nyanjora. Victoria Nyanjora was a victim of child trafficking from northern Uganda during the LRA wars, and she managed to educate herself through all odds, and she is now part of the fight against human trafficking. But then she has this thing that she said in one of her interviews. She said, every time we would meet and speak with the woman, they would say, I've already told my story. No one is listening. And she said many never get a chance to be re-educated. And we're talking about child education, child trafficking. So this child has escaped, has been saved by the Salvation Army. How do we reintegrate them? What are the mitigation procedures we can use, but also the reintegration strategies that we can use? And at the end, Julian will come in and tell us about the effect of online when it comes to human trafficking, and we shall sum this up. Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Thank you. Reintegration. Reintegration.
I know you've done reintegrations and dealing with stigmatization, especially when it comes to victims like of HIV/AIDS. So
reintegrating a person means this person has already been abused.
Yes.
Has already reached a point where you have identified that there is an abuse here. So that person has been assessed, and so many things have to be done. So clearly, when we are doing a reintegration, we think of the first pin in the nut is that we need psychological counseling. Because obviously, a child who has been oppressed and abused sexually, physically, labor, child labor, you know, has gone through some psychological torture. So to reintegrate this child either back to school, to love themselves, to love their family. Remember, some of them know that it's mommy who sent me away.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So you're bringing her back to mommy. They might escape that very night. Because out of the torture they went through, you're going to see them say, these people are going to take me back home. I can assure you that there are many children who run away when they hear that they are going to be taken back home. So even when they are suffering, they would rather run away to the street. So the starting point is psychological counseling. We make them accept the problem and accept that there is hope after that problem. And create that relationship with people who love them, create the relationship with their communities back, and let them appreciate that actually everyone has realized that I'm in a problem and they need to help me. So psychological counseling is key, the starting point. And then we go back further and say, these children went into trafficking because of the need, socio-economic need. So we must provide social support. Continuous counseling is part of social support. Helping them address their stigma. Have you heard of the children who went to the LRA as child soldiers, and then the child who were kidnapped from schools and taken as as wives at 10 years and so forth, aborted girls and so forth. Yes. So
actually, even Nyanjura was a victim of the Aboke attack.
So do you know the stigma they have? So you can't talk about anything at this time. You must understand that they need social support. And so social support will involve continuous counseling, then things to reintegrate them in terms of livelihood programs, giving them training, skills, and so forth. Then address their stigma-related, challenges, because people look at them differently back home. Because remember, they went when they are willingly taken, and then they are coming back. Some of them have babies. Some of them are no longer virgins, they've been raped, but they are raising with other children who are still maybe virgins or what. So parents are actually saying, this one has bad manners, don't relate with her. She went out there, she has what, maybe now she has HIV, maybe now she has what, don't relate with her. You get? But you want this child to start mingling with the friends, the age mates. So you need to help systems in place, put a system in place that they are stigma, because they have self-stigma. They fear even going back to their friends. So they have to address their stigma, self-stigma, but also address the stigma among the community. Let their community help them. We use it a lot in HIV programming. We talk a lot about reducing the stigma, because when you reduce the stigma, people will willingly go for treatment. When they don't go for treatment, the HIV will spread further, because people will hide, and people will actually transmit it to you, even when you think. So social support in terms of skilling, because these children maybe jumped out of school at P2, at P3. They can't go back at P2, P3. Their friends are already now in S1. They have been out there maybe for 3 years, 4 years. Their friends are in S1. You can't take them back to P3. So you come up with skilling programs like, projects like catering, vocational trainings, tailoring, building, and everything that comes with skilling, at that. So a lot of programs must happen. This child is what we call a special needs child, because they are now thinking differently. They have been introduced to the world that their age mates have not been part of. And their brain already has seen a lot, has already been tortured. So reviving that requires serious programs with all the associated structures within the community. So psychosocial support is very key with integration.
Thank you very much. There's something she said that made me emotional, but I'll share later as we close. Julian, in 1 minute, the online, the internet effect.
Yeah, so thank you. Internet has actually contributed so much to this heinous crime. And how have they used it? It has been their tool for recruitment. Actually, you realize that ever since from COVID, the traffickers redirected their work to online. And statistics show that there were more traffickers during the lockdown, more victims of trafficking during the lockdown than before.
When we thought the countries were locked and the airports
That's why
closed.
we are saying traffickers think very fast, you know. So they use these platforms to recruit their victims. You have heard of online dating. You know, they join with a partner and you think it's actually a partner, and the story changes when you get to the other side. They have also used online to advertise. These are too good to be true job
Stories,
advertisements. There are even those testimonies, you know. I've ever tried to apply for an online job, you know, but thankfully I think I just got, I almost became a victim, you know. Yeah, so the internet has contributed so much towards the increase of these numbers. And what should we do? When the trafficker goes that way, we also must retaliate, yes, in the same way. So a lot of efforts must be done
So
to
we
be able
need
to
online
prevent,
awareness,
yes.
and also everyone who is online, be vigilant, just don't
Exactly.
take up any opportunity.
Sure.
As we come to the close of this conversation, when Doctor was talking, there's something I remembered, a personal story of a person I care about. I can't share it because of time, but also I have not gotten permission. When it's about the home, when the person that has forced the child to go do whatever they had to do comes from home, when someone who is going to inspire you, convince you to do sex working is your mother, and then it is supposed to be home where you have to retract from.
To be safe, yeah.
So at the end, you even wonder, I get out and then go where? So for everyone who is a parent, a relative of someone, let's fight that this doesn't happen, because everyone deserves a home. Everyone deserves a place they say, it's my safe place. If a home can no longer be a safe place, then what it is? What is it? Now, there's a quote that I want to leave you with you today. Albert Einstein says, the world is a dangerous place, not because of the people that do evil, but because of the people that do nothing about it. Now, as I am calling Julian and Dr. Sarah to give their final remarks, I'm going to ask Dr. Sarah, what should our child do about it? Just 1, 2, 3 things you think they should do about it, and then you say goodbye to people. And then Julian, at the end, you will also tell us what are those summary options. Do you have a hotline at Salvation Army? Other than Sauti, other than police, Salvation Army, what do you have to do? What should they do when they need your help? Yes,
Okay.
Doctor.
Thank you. Before I tell the person watching us what they should do about what we're talking about.
Trafficking to an end. Supporting survivors who've returned home, helping to strengthen resilience through income generation projects and savings and loan schemes, and mobilizing communities to protect themselves.
And that is very clear. But also legal support. These children, some of them have been abused and need to take some legal action. And also as a government and also NGOs that are really coming in within these situations, we need, like in where I come from, I've not seen that, but we need homes, rehabilitation homes. say, what we call safe places. These children need to be taken to a safe place. You know, I come from Namisimba, but we don't have that system in place, that structure, where children who have been abused can be taken to a safe place or a safe house to be there as you're preparing her home to receive her. So these children we should have systems like that. Safe places for the children are really needed in the community. So, to my friends out there, this is a serious thing. Child trafficking is serious, and we might talk about it comfortably if it's not your child. But there is kind of, it's a very bad thing. It's very tormenting, it's psychological, it creates depression. Many children have gone into alcohol abuse because of child trafficking. Many children have ended up going into sexual abuse, got to diseases, sexual transmitted diseases because of child trafficking. And the call out there is one-to-one responsibility. Let all of us be responsible. We call on for self-responsibility, and we call on for accountability. Everyone should be accountable. We can try to borrow a little from our grandfathers, our ancestors. They were accountable for every child in the community. They took responsibility. Any child, even if the child has not eaten, the child would go anywhere and would have a meal. A child who is not disciplined in the community, anyone would have the responsibility to discipline that child. I think our African culture calls for that self-accountability, self-responsibility, and we can really cherish in our cultural norms and partake the child trafficking agenda to what an African society was. Let's take responsibility, let's be accountable to solve this problem.
Thank you. Julian.
Yes, thank you so much.
What should they do? Salvation Army, how can it help?
Yeah, right. So in addition to what the government has done, and also other CSOs and NGOs, and also individuals, to what they're doing towards contributing to the reduction, we as Salvation Army also have structures in place. Where our presence is, we have what we call cause or churches, and we have trained those church leaders in basic counseling and psychosocial support. So they are in position to receive this victim or this child and provide the basics. But then they are also able to call us, and we are able to handle the matter as the project. We have also trained them to ensure that depending on the matter or on the weight of the case, they are able to report, because it's also very important to have the police record, but also have a police report, so that we also have where to start from. So we also have our offices right here in Kampala, where they can still come over, and we see how far or how much we can provide the support.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been our talk show. This has been our conversation on human trafficking, especially for child. We leave no child in the fight against human trafficking. I thank you, Lady Julian, for your contribution. Dr. Sarah Hanakwa. Thank you very much for joining us in the conversation. For you who is listening to us as we sign out, remember that one action like this, like sharing this video, matters. Like sharing this link so that someone else is aware of such things that we've discussed, matters. Just start with one action. Share this video. Thank you very much. Catch you in the next conversation, and have a blessed week.
Human trafficking is a crime which impacts people all over the world. Traffickers often target those who are already vulnerable, socially isolated, or simply in need of work. And it's most often the promise of a better life or the chance to earn money which lures people away from the safety of the places they know and the people they love. In the towns and villages in eastern Uganda, it can be hard to earn enough to make ends meet. The border with Kenya is not far from here.